Good evening and welcome back. And let's immediately rush in some twists. And the next one was Johnson and Johnson. Now, let's have a look here. Johnson and Johnson, of course, saw a little bit of a sell-off here. It came all the way from $181 down to $167. But this viewer wants to buy Johnson and Johnson. And let's have a look here. It looks like Johnson & Johnson is slowly but surely working on an inverse head and shoulder. Now, an inverse head and shoulder, of course, is nothing else than a positive formation. And you know what some people always say, but Frans, you just look at head and shoulders and falling wedges and ascending triangles and all those fancy things. And can you make money out of it? The big question is, the answer is yes, you can make money, but only if you know what you're doing, and of course, if you watch your shares. The big thing over all these years that I've learned is that people take their money, give it to a fund manager, and usually it's brilliant guys looking after the money, and then they say, listen, we're going to leave it for 5 years or 10 years. We're not going to chat to our financial advisor. We're just going to leave it there, and we'll make a lot of money. And that's not true. I think your financial advisor would love you maybe phone him once or twice or 3 or 4 times a year and just say, let's have a look at my portfolio, because that's the big thing. And same thing with Johnson & Johnson. Imagine you bought it right at the top at 186. You forgot about it. You say, I don't want to look at it again. It's a good company. And suddenly the day when you look at it 6-7 months later, it's 168. Then you really take a fright. So let's have a look here. If you like Johnson & Johnson, and yes, you can make money, but the rule is on an inverse head and shoulder, this neckline must turn into a support. And where's the place? 182.70. Above 182.70, this inverse head and shoulder, there you are. You can see how I'm pointing it out there. This can easily trigger a beautiful rally to the top. And where can the share go to? Let's do the conservative target first. And why do I always give a conservative target and even a full target? Why? Because I've seen over the years that technical analysis is also not 100% correct. You always have a chance that it doesn't work out. And for me, in my book, I always say to people, it's usually 80% correct. It's never 100%. And even I know some brilliant fundamental analysts, and they've been with me for many years, and they ask me many levels day in and day out, because that's the service that we're offering them. But on the other hand, sometimes they are also horribly wrong. And it's not because they're bad guys. It's not because they don't do their homework. It's just sometimes the market is against them. So if this neckline turns into a support, the share can go to 185.80. And if it plays out to the top, it can take us all the way back to a beautiful high of 192.87. So yes, the chart looks appealing to me, but where will I worry? And that will be low of this left shoulder. There you are. Below this level of 176.60, I will get nervous. I will believe that the share can easily turn around and maybe show us some new lower highs. So it's always a case, and that's the important thing about technical analysis. It's always a case of two sides of a sword. So it can either go this way or that way, and you must just strategize according to that, and don't fall into the, almost you can say, the trap to say you can never go wrong, because we've seen over the years that some companies, brilliant companies, like let's call it Bright, Able, was wonderful companies, but when things went awkwardly wrong, the share just fell on a heap. We've got a request on Ford Motor Company, and this was a tweet. Somebody tweeted for me and said, Frans, can you maybe just look at Ford, the motor company? Now, first of all, we know that the interest rate cycle is ticking higher, and that, as we know, that will, that should put some motor manufacturers or car manufacturers under pressure. But what do we see here? The trend to the downside is still 100% in place. There you are. In actual fact, I'm going to change this rule a little bit. I'm going to use that line because that was a spike. And with using this line, I've got a nice slope here. I like this 30% slopes or a 40% slope to the downward because that gives you usually a more accurate level. And then what do? I also do this resistance line or support line at the bottom. Let's join the pointers there. Let's zoom it out for you again so that you can see. Because remember, part of talking technical is not to analyze just requests. It's also to teach you about technical analysis. And the other thing, to share my passion with you. Because if I can do that, you can learn and you can also become successful by using technical analysis. And you know what's the beauty? You don't need a fancy degree to be a technical analyst. You need to have knowledge of the market. You need to know your charts. You maybe need to know candlesticks, volume, and then what you do know is you pick up the emotion of the market. And the moment you pick up the emotion of the market, you get to know what the informed capital are doing, and by doing that, you can maybe make a better decision. So where there you are, Ford Motor Company, it's a falling wedge, of course, a positive formation if it breaks up, and above $11.80, we can maybe see this falling wedge come into play. It gives us a beautiful relief bounce. Where can it take us to? 1348. And again, where's my stop loss? My stop loss will be right there at $11. And the reason why I'm saying, because this trend is so clearly to the downside. And what did this market learn us this last 2.5 years? Shares goes much higher than you ever anticipate. And now that we see that they're starting to fall, they fall much lower than you were anticipating. So that's the golden rule. Just wait for the break. Just to play safe, especially with shares, because an index, it's a different story because it's a basket full of shares. It cannot go to zero, and it can maybe go to 1 million, but it cannot go to zero. On the other hand, with a share, if something goes wrong with the Ford Motor Company, it can maybe go much lower than what you ever thought. Here's another share that's falling off the cliff, General Electric. I mean, this is a massive company. This is a company that almost controls the motor industry. Anything to do with motors, from electric motors, cars, everything, they are involved. And look at the share price. Can you believe it? It fell, well, it's falling all the way already, just from January this year. It's coming down from $103, and it's down to 61. I mean, that's a bear market share like you can't believe, because it's lower highs all the way right through. And if you want to buy it, same rule again that I'm going to apply. I'm going to take the resistance line there. I'm going to find where the support is. And I will just join the dots here. And what is the emotional story of this share? Or what does the informed capital are saying to us? It's telling us momentum is still clearly to the downside. And by the way, we see a left shoulder here, we see a head here, and we see a right shoulder here. I know we want nice horizontal necklines, but you sometimes see a skew neckline, and then it does play out, and it breaks, and it can go all the way to your target. And maybe if I come, let's just see where that target is while we've spent a little bit of time in here. If it really plays out to the bottom, let's have a look there. There you are. It can still go a little bit lower. It can maybe go us all the way back to $60.40. Where is this falling wedge coming into play? Because I know that some guys will say, Frans, the market is just so low, we must see a bounce. Remember, a bear market can maybe sometimes take 9 months, 18 months. It can take longer. But for the moment, momentum is down. And only above this little line there you are. I can almost say that little dot here, if I combine that, it can take us 66.37. Above 66.37, we can see that this resistance line turns into a support. Falling wedge breaks up to the upside. And where can it take it to? It can take it to $74.36. Where's my stop loss? My stop loss will be, I think, that $60.30. To play out exactly the level where this head and shoulder can play out, that will be my stop loss, $60.30. And let's hope that this share can turn around. What we can do is companies like Ford, companies like General Electric, some beautiful, solid, good companies. It's being hammered month in, month out. Make a list of those shares. In actual fact, we do it for our subscribers. We make a list, we put it on the side, and when those shares starts to trigger and it tells us that something is happening, we give it through. But if you're not a subscriber, it doesn't matter. You make a list of those companies, watch them closely, because at some point they will turn around and give you wonderful returns. Let us look at British American Tobacco. I mean, this share loves a weaker rand. And what do we see? Since the rand started to weaken, it goes up beautifully. But what this share is telling me is that maybe the rand is a little bit too weak now. Because what do we see here? And I want to use this line. And you will immediately see what I'm showing you here. This line was first the resistance. Look at it, the share price action was below that. Then it bounced up, now it's a support. But we're seeing like almost a double top. We can almost say it's a that's happening. There's a top, there's a top, there's another top. Now where's this double top, that double top? Where can it play in? Where can it come into play? It will come into play below this neckline, and that is 60.72 Rand 46 cents. If that breaks, I can bet you $1 the rand will start to will strengthen. Why? Because British American Tobacco earns most of their money overseas in euro and pound and all those fancy currencies, those first world currencies. And the moment those currencies will come under pressure, you'll suddenly see that the rand strengthen and the British American Tobacco price will maybe come under pressure as well. But on the other hand, if the rand starts to weaken and carries on above this level of 716.90, share can just maybe go higher and even go maybe levels to 725, 728. I checked that the other day for somebody. But for me, watch this neckline. For me, I will not buy it at the moment. Just be a little bit nervous just to buy, because it looks like we can see a double top and it can maybe surprise us to go down. This is one of those companies that you can always buy when it's under huge pressure, because it usually bounces. Thank you for watching the show. Visit our website www.fransklerk.com for more info, and we will chat again.